Hi, you all know that I don't particularly love the Rivian R1 Gen 2 sound system. It's fine, like especially at lower volumes, but it's really nothing to write home about, which is really disappointing for a really high-end premium luxury truck. The sound system in Kyle's truck when he got it was incredible, his first gen, almost first month Rivian R1T. But the Gen 2 sound systems have just been a bit of a bummer. I believe they have improved a bit with software updates, but hopefully they can do more to improve them in the future, and hopefully they really improve it by the Rivian R2 because I'm really excited for that. But all that to say, I have our friend TJ here to actually help provide more substance on what the sound system's actually missing. You may remember TJ from the I-90 Surge, and TJ, welcome to the channel. Help us understand what's wrong with the Rivian R1 sound.
The sound system. It's what makes or breaks a car for a lot of people, especially myself as an audio engineer. And I've had some very, very strong opinions on the Gen 2 Rivian Premium Audio. So today I'm going to go over a quickish overview on my thoughts as an audio engineer on the Gen 2 Premium Audio for Rivian, the R1S specifically, as well as how I think they could improve. And these methods could be via software tuning or potentially hardware changes as well. So stay tuned as I deep dive into sound, one of my favorite topics. So Rivian's premium audio upgrade for the R1S comes with an 18 speaker setup. Those speakers include obviously the 4 in each 4 doors. On the bottom, there are also 2 on the upper area as well for the 2 rear doors. You have 2 on each side here. You have 2 on each side here. You have 2 speakers per row here, with the 3rd row speakers being on the side here, behind the window. And then finally you have the big guy right here, and then the subwoofer. Now, this is a great setup in terms of hardware. Definitely has speakers in all the, well, we'll say for simplicity, the right areas. But there definitely seems to be an issue with the tuning. So while they've improved on quality since I took delivery in September, they still have a long ways to go. When I first got it in September, it was a crap show, to say the least. Very, very muffled. All of the audio was essentially coming from the bottom door speakers and the big speaker up here. All the other drivers weren't really doing anything. And so you had this muddy, lower feeling audio experience. You can't hear vocals well. There is no bass whatsoever. And you can't hear any high frequency sounds either. So it's basically a bunch of mids the entire time. Later on, they came out with a few different updates here and there, addressing some of the different areas separately. And one of the big changes were a few months ago adding support, or I guess improving the output for the upper drivers. So these upper ones right up here are actually very important. These are what should be playing all of the high frequency, or at least most of the high frequency, mid frequency sounds you'd hear in a song. So, hit hats on a drum set, high vocals, everything like that should be coming from up here, not down here. That should be working on mids and lows. So they finally brought, output up here, which is good. So it became less muddy. So the muddiness isn't gone. It's gotten less, but it's not gone. They still need to fix some clarity issues. And truth be told, I don't know if that can be fixed via software any better. It might just be an acoustics of the cabin problem in the placement of the speakers. Later on, this is my Electrify Expo band. Later on, they came out with a couple updates in the bass department, finally. Previously, it was a very, very flat experience. Even the drivers down here and the dedicated subwoofer in the back didn't really do anything in regards of bass. So even bass heavy songs, except for a select few, were very flat. And this is both in standard audio mode and Dolby Atmos. And I'll get to Dolby Atmos in a little bit. They eventually brought some bass improvements, including one just this past week, which finally you can actually hear some. Now, they still need to add more, but we're getting places. We're going somewhere. Basically, the bottom door drivers, the two up here and the two in the middle row, can finally output some low frequency, some sub 50 hertz noise. And so you actually get a somewhat complete audio experience. Now, the subwoofer, the dedicated subwoofer, is actually quieter from a bass standpoint than the door card ones now. So literally, I've sat in every single seat to kind of gauge what the best listening experience is per seat. And it's quite interesting, actually. Really quickly on the third row, I'll go more in depth on all the rows in a second. But in the third row, where the subwoofer is on the right, I could barely hear it. There's only a maybe slight increase in sound I hear sitting next to it than I do way up here. So they definitely have to either replace the hardware for it or turn it up. Like it has to do something. The sub is really he's just there so he doesn't get fined. So I sat in I do this every update. I just decided to film it today. But each audio update, I sit in every seat and gauge what the listening experience is per seat. So I can, one, expect what I would hear in different seats, but also what my passengers might hear. So I can, turn the volume or turn it down or vice versa. So starting off with the driver's seat, the most important one. The audio experience here is ironically the most balanced. And I say ironically because when I move over to the passenger seat, I notice that the drivers on the right side here, on the roof and on the A-pillar here, the ones so you can see, this one and this one, but on the opposite side, those are actually louder than they are over here, at least for mine. So it was actually a more heavy experience on my right ear than the left ear in the front passenger seat. Meanwhile, in the driver's seat here, it's like a perfect 50-50 ratio. So basically they've turned up the volume for the right upper drivers here to make it sound even for the driver. Now, I won't necessarily complain about that because it's mostly just me driving, so I'm okay with that. It's an interesting find, but like it's not nearly as bad as some other things. But yeah, sitting right here, you honestly get the most bass right here. Front passenger is the second most. And moving on to the second row. The second row is a bit interesting. You definitely have a drop in clarity. Moving to the second row here, it's definitely a more muddy experience. You have the upper drivers here. You have the two-door drivers up here and down here, which I'll show another B-roll shot because you can't see my hand. But pretty much, you have all the equipment you need, but it's a pretty muddy experience compared to the front. Interestingly, similar to the front row, I have the same, louder in my right ear sitting here, while it's balanced right here. And again, it's slight. In fact, it's less noticeable in the second row, but it is noticeable a tiny bit. If you sit in the middle, you get a more even experience, but you're also still hearing, honestly, a more muddy experience because now you have distance between yourself and the speakers, not to mention if you have people sitting beside you, it's going to get even more muddy. Now to the third row. The third row is interesting. It's the least clear sounding row of all of them, and that's mainly due because the only non-subwoofer speakers you have are right here and right here on the side here. You have this one right here, and you have the same one on the opposite side. Whoop, come on, right here. Apart from those, you have the subwoofer back here. And honestly, the subwoofer is probably the least utilized piece of equipment in the whole audio setup in the Rivian right now, at least for the Gen 2 Premium. And that's a massive letdown because of the lack of bass overall for the entirety of the cabin is basically because the door card, the bottom door drivers are doing all the work. You do hear the subwoofer, but you're not really hearing any, heavy bass rattling or much at all. It's really just you hear the low frequencies from the song, but it just sounds like a regular speaker playing lower frequencies versus a subwoofer actually, for lack of a better term, woofing. So this definitely needs either a hardware change or hopefully a software change and just turning it up, but it might end up being a hardware limitation. Regardless, the audio experience back here is definitely the worst of the 3 rows. And that brings me to my final point. What can they do to fix the Gen 2 Rivian Premium Audio? Because remember, there is a worse option. The standard audio is flat out garbage. And this one isn't far ahead. So, honestly, first off, it is better in the R1T. And that is due purely to acoustics, the smaller cabin, and the closer proximity of the subwoofer and other speakers ending at the second row, as well as a smaller second row than the R1S. You'll get a better experience. So at least if you're getting an R1T with premium audio, you at least have a decent experience. Not a great one, but a decent one, better than this. But in terms of fixing the problem, Rivian needs to, most importantly, continue bringing the bass. Keep it coming, keep it coming. Secondly, and this is kind of related in the bass category, see what's going on with the subwoofer. It's just hanging out. It doesn't have any real benefit right now. We need to actually be able to hear it. I want to, you sit in a Tesla, even my old Model 3 with the amp halfway going out, it's a night and day difference. And for such a premium segment vehicle, the audio shouldn't sound worse than the base model Chevy Malibu. And that's being gracious. So they definitely need to increase the bass massively. Next, continue working on clarity. Bring more clarity to the second row and third row, at least as much as you can the third row, because third row is a hardware limitation. They should have put another set of roof-mounted drivers on the third row. But they can definitely make the second row sound clearer and continue working on clarity up front as well. I should be able to hear more defined high frequency and mids versus all the highs and mids kind of jumbled up together. It has gotten better with the upper drivers, but it can still improve. As far as Dolby Atmos, that's a tough one. And it could be due to, Dolby's mastering, but sometimes when I will use Dolby Atmos, I believe they fixed this recently or are going to fix it. It has a, varying volume problem. But in addition to that, it also has an issue where it's, for lack of a better term, throwing sounds everywhere. So like you hear something right here, 1 second, and then that same sound you're hearing again way back there. And it happens throughout the whole song. I've noticed it sound a lot better in a buddy's Gen 1 with Dolby Atmos on, and that they had the elevation audio, I believe. and it sounded better. So it might be a tuning thing, I don't know, but Atmos definitely can use some work. And as far as like the general experience, they still rely very heavily on this right here, which is fine, but you can also improve the other speakers. I mean, the bottom door speakers are working overtime. They should just be focused on low and mids. And these speakers here, up here, need to be doing more in the mids to highs. And hopefully they can get the clarity issue fixed, because Gen 2 audio is still a very flat, very muddy, very just cheap experience for what costs an upgrade. Not to mention these are in vehicles as cheap as around what, 72 grand or something, but as expensive as 110, and that's before the quad motor comes out with the same audio system. So they definitely need to fix this. It's definitely a massive letdown. We need to get either a hardware change, and for people like me who pay for the upgrade, we just need the hardware change just included. I don't want to pay for the audio that I was supposed to get again. So either we need, a hardware retrofit with some really good drivers and some, actually well thought through systems, or we need some very robust software updates in all the different departments I mentioned earlier. Clarity, bass, and actually, defined frequencies. You gotta be able to hear. You're supposed to have a kind of a sound profile on where you want things to go. It's very confused in the Rivian. I don't think they really know how to tune them. So that's my kind of condensed rundown on the audio. I have a lot more opinions, so let me know if you are interested in hearing more about it. But yeah, that's about all I have without boring you to death. Let me know if you want to hear more about my audio experiences with cars. Every car I test out, the first thing I go test is the sound system. I love my Model 3 for it. I was hoping this would have a great one too, but it's pretty disappointing. But yeah, let me know if you want to hear more audio opinions from me. I will happily go and test every car imaginable and even rate the sound. So yeah, thanks for watching.